Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hogs back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Herrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Well, hello and greetings from Alexandria, Virginia. I decided to, come on down and do this thing in person. So welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 51 for Sunday, October 10th, 2021. If you're hoping for a podcast featuring tour reviews for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we are not going to be much help. This is the American Hockey League podcast, and my name is CC Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from Stats Track and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the teams in the AHL for the upcoming 21-22 season. We both watch a lot of AHL games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to more advanced hockey stats terms like the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest today, you wasted 20 minutes trying to figure out if you can beat Bobby Flay before he leaves the Food Network. You'll never get that time back, so why not next time spend a little more time talking hockey with us?
And a quick note before we begin, we are doing a contest and giving away 3, count them 1, 2, 3, AHL Team TV packages. To enter, go to our Linktree page. That's linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead and click on the AHL TV giveaway button for instructions on how to enter. All right. Let's get right to it. Central Division, Grand Rapids Griffins, Chicago Wolves, and Rockford IceHogs. We're going to be previewing their 2021-22 season in that order. So let's dive right in. First and foremost, Grand Rapids Griffins. Head coach Ben Simon entering his 4th season. 2021 record is 16-12-3-1. That's a .563 points percentage. 3rd place out of 6 teams in the Central last year. The affiliation for 2021 didn't change. It's still Detroit up in the NHL and still the Toledo Walleye down in the ECHL. 76 games scheduled for the Grand Rapids Griffins. Sean, you want to talk additions real quick?
Yeah, they have Kevin Lynch, John Martin, Mitchell Stevens, Ryan Murphy from Henderson, Wyatt Newpower from Cleveland, Dan Renouf, Luke Wikowski from Syracuse, and Dennis Yan.
Subtractions. I got that covered. Gregor McLeod, Dominic Turgeon, Evgeny Svechnikov heading up to Manitoba, Dennis Cholowski, Charles Edouard Destaus heading over to the Colorado Eagles organization, Tori Dello, Joe Hicketts, Dylan McElrath, Kevin Boyle, Patty Nagel going over to Lehigh Valley / Reading, and Max Humitz also departing Grand Rapids. Alrighty, Sean, let's dive in. Let's talk forwards first and foremost. What do you got on Riley Barber?
I mean, much like the others we'll talk about in this preview, Riley's Barber's last season is what I expect from him in this one. He's good puck skills and can skate well. He's not much of a playmaker, though, because Barber is a shoot first, shoot second, shoot third kind of player, which is fair. He's got very good shooting talent for the AHL, especially in his one-timer. Defensively, he's not going to give you that much at all, but he makes up for that with his strong scoring touch. He's a top liner for Grand Rapids this year and should be a lock for a 20-goal pace.
Gotcha. All right, next up, Taro Hirosi. Hirosi had another solid season with Grand Rapids and got a few games with the Red Wings as well. I don't expect much to change for him this season. He's still a very good playmaker at the AHL level with good puck skills. His skating as his stride is becoming more consistent, but I don't think it will ever be a strength of his. Defensively, he's fine. Hirosi should still fill in a top 6 role in Grand Rapids, so hopefully setting up guys like Barber for one-timers on the power play.
A better offensive season than I would have thought from Kyle Cuolo.
Easy mistake.
But that's not shocking when he centered Hirosi and Barber for a good portion of the season and got solid power play time. I still think Chris Cuolo is best as a defensive-minded center with more offensively capable wingers, hence the success with Barber and Hirosi. That's not to say he's inept offensively, though. He's got average puck skills and shooting talent. His vision in transition in the offensive zone is above average, though. He's also a pretty good skater. Defensively, he's solid and puts in the work in the defensive zone, regularly using a steady work ethic and an unwillingness to just not be a guy who takes 2 strides from making the play, but finishes those strides to make the play. I'd be surprised if he was centering a different line this season, as he had such good chemistry with Hirosi and Barber, and they seem to be locks for spending most of the season in Grand Rapids together. Regardless, he belongs in the top 6 and on the first penalty kill unit.
Next up, let's talk about Chase Pearson. Pearson was given an expanded role in 2021, including regular power play time. He stepped up well, finishing with exact 19-20 totals in 31 fewer games. I'm not entirely sure those gains in production stick, but I think there's potential for Pearson to become a useful middle 6 scorer for Grand Rapids this season. His overall skill set is rather average, and as he is around league average puck skills and shooting talent, but I think he's an above average playmaker and looked to take steps forward in his vision last season. His skating is still a weakness, but it's improving and is just below league average. Defensively, I think he's pretty good and could kill penalties effectively. I think he's likely a depth scorer for the Griffins this year, but one of the better ones around the league.
An honorable mention for our Best Hockey Flow award last season, Turner Elson returns to the Griffins, albeit his hair does not. He donated it to Locks of Love in the offseason. So if you identified him on the ice by the flowing mane behind him, I have bad news for you. You're going to have to learn he's number 15. Elson plays a solid 2-way game as a kind of do-it-all forward. Offensively, his best attribute is his skating burst. His top speed isn't that great, but he gets to top speed very quickly and can win races because of it. His puck skills are above average, mostly because he carries the puck out of in front of him too often, which is bad. It opens you up to a lot of poke checks. But his playmaking vision is pretty good, though. He is able to find guys in through tougher passing lanes to get pucks through. Defensively, he's a relentless pursuer, but knows how to cover defensive assignments away from the play as well. Overall, he's a reliable forward who's, I think, a better winger than a center and can do it all for the Griffins this season in what should be a second or third line middle 6 kind of role.
Next up, we've got Joe Vellano. While his time in North America was short last season, he looked very impressive to me and made leaps forward from where he was in 1920. Vellano has a Swiss Army knife skill set. He has speed and plays with pace. His puck skills and playmaking vision are good. And while not a gifted sniper, Vellano's shot can beat goalies from mid-range. I'd say he's at his best on the rush, where he can use all of those skills to keep defenders off balance and create quality scoring chances. Defensively, Vellano is very good and can identify threats before they become dangerous. Vellano should be an easy top 6 do-it-all. Great option for the Griffins this year, and I'd expect him to get an extended look in Detroit as well.
Giovanni Smith has played 129 games for the Griffins. I can't imagine I'm going to break new ground talking about who he is as a player in this preview, but it would be kind of weird to just leave him out. Smith is a fast skating battler. Offensively, his skill set is above average for the AHL, very good puck skills, especially in tight, close quarters. He's got good playmaking vision. His shooting is about league average. His big value comes from his forechecking ability that's powered by his skating and his tenacity along the walls and in front of the net. He's able to win pucks in the dirty areas and finish plays once he has the pucks skating, off the boards away from the battle. Defensively, he's an asset that can be counted on and contribute in his own end. If he spends an extended period of time with Grand Rapids this season, which is not a lock for Giovanni Smith, I think he's definitely going to be another solid piece for them up front in the top 6.
Next up, we've got Lucas Raymond. The number 4 overall pick from 2020 comes to America and looks to get a little seasoning in the A before carrying on for what's likely a solid NHL career. Hey, much like Phil Tomasino over in our Milwaukee preview, if it's an offensive hockey skill, Lucas Raymond can do it and do it at a high level. In short, he can shoot, he can pass, he can skate, more impressively, he can put it all together. He can shoot and pass inside skating strides. He catches bad passes and can fire wrist shots in one fluid motion. On top of all that, he has a hockey IQ that is stupid good. And defensively, unlike Tomasino, he's a very solid defensive player. He plays a 200-foot game. If I had to find a critique in his game, it would be that he needs to find the weight room more. He did struggle at times playing through contact in the SHL. However, this is probably true for every 19-year-old hockey playing against grown-ass men.
Yeah, that's a very fair criticism, and one I think that will probably dissipate pretty quickly. That's even if he makes it to Grand Rapids. I hear there are some talks that he is going to make the Red Wings out of camp, which I think is a mistake. I want to see him take more seasoning in the AHL to kind of round out his game a little bit more, but there's some merit to that, and I trust the Yzer plan more than anything. Jonathan Baragrion is finally getting healthy after he finally got healthy last season and just balled out in Sweden. He's a decent skater with good edge work, but his strength is in his playmaking and puck skills. He's a creative playmaker who has incredible poise under pressure, who often makes passes like he's able to see the overhead view from EA Sports NHL terrible game series. But Bargrion's problem is that his playmaking ability is very good, but he can't balance it with shooting. He's not a very good shooter. And if you're wondering how a bad shooter can score 12 goals in 49 SHL games in 2021, go watch them. He actually beats the goaltender with his shot on maybe 3 of 12. The rest are tap-ins, empty nets, and I think 2 or 3 that he banked off either a defenseman in front or hit off the inside of the goalie's pad from behind the net to go in. That's not going to score you goals in the AHL. He's not going to do more than the minimum in the defensive zone, but he is going to do the minimum. He should be a fun player to watch in Grand Rapids this year, and I'm interested to see how he progresses. He's been another one of the Red Wings Swedish prospects that it feels like we've been hearing about for a long time, but he's finally coming to America to be a professional hockey player, and I'm interested to see what that looks like on a full-time basis.
Well, those are the forwards for Grand Rapids. Let's head over to the defensive core. Let's start with Wyatt Newpower. So Newpower plays a solid but unspectacular game in all 3 zones. Offensively, he's capable of jumping up and joining the rush. He has good playmaking vision and puck skills, but never quite leans on them to make as many scoring chances as he could. He's not a very good shooter and takes too many shots from the perimeter. He's a solid skater who can get around the rink, but lacks that top speed that will allow him to threaten to take defenders wide. Defensively, he's aggressive and can break up plays in the neutral zone with his good skating. However, his aggression can backfire, and he can get caught too far up the ice. He's not very physical. He'll hit guys, but not in a punishing way. All in all, he's a solid defenseman, but I don't think he's ready for a top pairing role.
Seth Barton's game is based on his skating. He doesn't have McLaren, Lamborghini kind of speed, but he can move and he can play with pace. His offensive toolkit is decent, but not tremendous. It's very whelming. He's capable of coming off the blue line during the cycle and capable of leading the rush with his skating. His playmaking vision and puck skills are just kind of average, though. Defensively, there's a lot more to like. He defends his blue line well and is an asset in his own end. I don't think he finds the score sheet that often this season, but should still be a reliable in-zone defender who can kill penalties and make a play in the O-zone here and there.
Next up, let's talk about Ryan Murphy, like you mentioned, coming over from the Silver Knights organization. A big step up for Murphy last year as he rediscovered the offense that he had in Charlotte and throughout his juniors career. Murphy himself has said that he got away from trying to fix his defensive game and realized that he was doing so at the expense of what set him apart in the first place. Murphy showed improved playmaking vision, and his skating has always been solid. His puck skills have above average and below average aspects to them. He can make and receive passes cleanly. He struggles at times with dump-in retrievals and controlling loose pucks. I would have liked to see him be more productive 5v5 as almost half of his points came on the power play, but that's not the end of the world. Defensively, Murphy still isn't great. He's not a liability, but isn't very physical and isn't going to win battles often. Still, Ryan Murphy should be an absolute asset in transition and on the power play. Not that the Griffins really need a whole lot of power play help, as they were 5th in the league last year.
So in the opening, we talked about additions and subtractions and talked about losing Dylan McElrath. In McElrath, the Griffins lost a veteran leader on defense who never really contributed much offensively and wasn't a good skater, but was good in his own zone and physical to a fault where he ended up in penalty trouble often for oftentimes not a very good reason. They now bring in, they lost that presence, but now bring in Luke Wikowski, who's a veteran leader on defense who won't contribute too much offensively. He's a better skater, but not a good skater. He's good in his own zone and physical, who takes some fewer penalties than McIlrath. So not exactly a one-for-one trade, but still they found a good filler for the spots that McIlrath leaves that were looking to be filled there.
Second to last on the Blue Liners, let's talk Donovan Cebrango. So Cebrango looked decent in the AHL last season, and then you remember he's a teenager. He's still a Ute. Offensively, he's got skill, but it's not really as an in-zone playmaker or shooting threat. He's been using his skating to get the puck through the neutral zone in transition. I've seen flashes of higher-end skill from him, but it's all that's amounted to so far is just that, flashes. Still, he's a solid skater who can move the puck. Defensively, he's solid and physical in his own end without being in penalty trouble often. I don't think he'll ever be a dominant defenseman. He still has a useful skill set that can be helpful in a middle pairing role for the Griffins.
Last up on the defensive line here, I'm genuinely hoping that Jared Mcisac is finally healthy. It feels like it's been ages since it was. In actuality, it's been 2, maybe 3 seasons, which is still a long time, especially for a 23-year-old. That's like a 7th of his life. When healthy, Mcisac is a solid skating, physical defenseman with some offensive upside. Offensively, he's a solid but unspectacular playmaker who can find teammates in the offensive zone, but doesn't often leave the safety of his blue line during the cycle. He's a solid skater with exceptional defensive skating, but his big problem has been his consistency. Some nights he looked locked in and made great decisions and played hard. Others, while he'd still play hard, he looked like the game was moving too fast for him to keep up and would make bad choices with the puck because of it. Defensively, he's reliable in his own end and a valuable asset defending the rush. Because of his solid defensive skating, he's able to close the gap on forwards coming in on even or odd man rushes like super fast. If Mcisac is actually healthy, I think he starts the season off roughly. He's been out of action for a while. He's still essentially a rookie who struggled with processing speed jumping into a transition from juniors to pro that's long given good players those growing pains. However, if he can find the timing and pace of the AHL quick enough, I think he's going to be a solid top 4 defenseman for the Griffins this year, who hopefully can find a little bit more of his offensive magic to contribute to the score sheet a little bit.
Those are the defensemen. We covered the forwards earlier. Last but not least, let's talk voodoo. Let's talk goaltending. And first up is Caden Fulcher, actually. Fulcher, yes. It's hard to know what to make of Fulcher. He wasn't terrible in net for the Griffins last season, but he looked very uncomfortable and had a lot of extra movement in his game. He only started 9 games in all of 2021, which isn't great, but considering the limited schedule, sometimes it's all guys got. He's got a decent athleticism and is bigger than average frame, but he needs to get his puck tracking and movement to be better if he wants to be a regular AHL goaltender.
The only other goalie in camp to note is Calvin Pickard, and it's also hard to know what to make of Calvin Pickard. He's been a reliable goalie in the past, but he struggled the last few years and just hasn't been the same goalie that was slightly above average in 2014-15. He's athletic and can explode post to post to make tough saves. He tracks the puck well and can handle when things break down in front of him. However, he's very aggressive and prone to anchoring on shooters and gets caught when passes go through, giving up empty nets. His movement also gets very busy at times, especially when there's a lot going around in front of him. He'll end up making extra movements that aren't as efficient, and it looks scrambly. All in all, if he can find his form and be an average starter for the Griffins this season, I think that's a good sign for them as a whole of a team. But I also think that that's a fairly significant if.
All right, moving on from the goaltending and Vegas Golden Knights legend Calvin Pickard. Let's talk outcomes, Shawnee. Okay, first, I'll take best case scenario. As we covered last time, the Central is the death division because most of the division is really good and someone has to lose those games. If the Griffins can get league average goaltending from the tandem of Fulcher and Pickard, then their very talented group of forwards and defensemen should be able to handle the rest as they have depth everywhere. In the best case, they finish with 88 points for a 57.89 points percentage and a second place finish in the Central.
So let's talk worst case. Goaltending is a weakness all year long, and the Red Wings take extended looks at a lot of the Utes. While there's still enough talent on this roster to weather even the most severe storms, this is the death division. Worst case scenario here, Grand Rapids finishes with 81 points for a 53.29% points percentage and a fourth place finish.
I got to say, as a side note, for us to do that together, it's really good to do that drum roll together. Feels right. Feels natural. All right, we've gone from one side of the pendulum to the other. Let's talk the most likely scenario, the most likely case for Grand Rapids. The model has the Griffins projected for 85.85 points and a 56.48 points percentage. That's a third place finish in the Central Division. I'm going to take the under on that because I think the goaltending struggles and the Utes don't all make it to Grand Rapids. I'll call it 83 points even for a 54.61 points percentage and a fourth place finish, which of course in this opened playoff format.
Oh yeah, that's still playoffs.
Yeah, that's still playoffs for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break here, and after the break, we'll get to the Chicago Wolves and Rockford IceHogs season previews. If you're just here for the Grand Rapids season preview, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever listening to us from so that you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at the Calder Farmstead and Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. To find out how to enter that contest, all the details can be found on our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Go to that page. You'll see a big section there that says AHL TV contest giveaway. Click on the explainer video. That'll tell you what you got to do. And then the video or the links below it will take you to the post you need to go click buttons on. Do all that. You win free AHL TV. There's still a pretty good shot at it from looking at the numbers earlier today. So go check that out. We'll be right back from Chicago Wolves. Stay tuned.
All right, we've covered one team in this episode from the Central Division in Grand Rapids. And once again, we're coming from Alexandria, Virginia. Sean and I both in person for the first time here. Let's talk Chicago Wolves, my friend. You want to go ahead and start the stats capsule? Feel free.
Absolutely. Chicago Wolves head coach is Ryan Wikowski in his second season as the head coach there. Their 2021 record, 21-9-1-2 for a 682 points percentage. That was first in the Central Division last year. Their affiliations have changed. So they are now Carolina's NHL affiliate alone. No more Nashville. And they are with Norfolk in the ECHL this year. They have 72 games scheduled. Let's talk additions and subtractions. Cece, who is coming into the Wolves organization?
Well, first off, forward Stephen Harper, Max Latunov from San Jose, Kyle Moreno, Sam Miletic, Andrew Poldarovsky from the San Diego Gulls, big acquisition. CJ Smith, Daniel Brickley, Jalen Chatfield, Eric Jelena, Josh Jacobs, Alex Lyon, goaltender, big acquisition coming over from Lehigh Valley, and Dylan Wells. Carolina picked him up in a trade with the Edmonton organization.
And guys that are leaving Chicago be Jason Cotton, Morgan Geeky, Seth Jarvis, who is still with the Canes organization but had to go back to juniors because stupid agreements with the NHL. Drew Shore, Sean Malone, Brandon Hickey, coach's brother David Warsofsky. I guess he wasn't a big fan of his brother telling him what to do. And Antoine Bibeau also heading to other pastures. So let's start this preview here by talking about the forwards. I'm going to start and jump in and do David Cotton here. Cotton showed last year why his shooting was highly regarded. 14 goals in 26 games is an impressive total. He excels at finding soft ice in dangerous areas and can rip wrist shots off passes in one smooth motion. His puck skills and playmaking vision aren't that good, making him somewhat of a one-dimensional offensive player. His skating doesn't do him any favors as he's not very quick. He seems to recognize that, though, and makes passes instead of trying to skate through the neutral zone. So he understands his limitations and comes away with a method to get around them. Defensively, he's okay. He's physical and throws his body around, but is otherwise unremarkable in his own end. I think he's still going to be a useful top 6 forward for Chicago this year because shooting talent is the hardest talent there is to find. CC, tell me about CJ Smith.
Yes, I mentioned him earlier. CJ Smith leaves the Buffalo organization having spent 4 seasons there and comes to the Maroon and Gold. His offensive game is solid as he's been a top 6 contributor for the Amerks for his time there. He has good hockey IQ and decent puck skills. His playmaking vision is solid. He's a good but not great shooter. His one-timer is good as he adapts to bad passes to still get a hard shot away. A lot of his goals, though, are from his ability to get on rebounds and finish plays around the net as opposed to pure snipes. He can win battles down low and at net front. He knows how to get loose from his defender and create space to receive a pass in the slot. Decent skating, but lacks that top speed. Defensively, he's not great, but he's not a liability either. He does enough to not get benched, but won't try to be a defensive hero.
Next up, we're going to talk about their big acquisition here from San Diego, Poldarovsky. Sorry, Andrew Poldarovsky. Alex is his long-lost brother. Poldarovsky has made a long career in the AHL by being an all-around very good offensive player. He has good puck skills, but great plate-making vision and a high hockey IQ. He's a solid shooter who has a quick release and can find soft ice in the slot. He adds deceptive layers to his game, too, and will look at passes and then rip shots. He's a decent skater, but doesn't have the top gear necessary to put defenders on their heels and threaten to turn the corners, but it doesn't really limit his game as he makes up for it with the rest of his skill set. Defensively, yeah, he's not going to do too much there, and is a big proponent of cheating out of the zone when it looks like his defense might recover the puck. Gone. All in all, though, he's someone who's going to drive offensive production on whatever line he's with. You could tie 2 boat anchors to him, and they're still going to put points on the board.
Next up is Stefan Nason, and it's not exactly clear if Nason's going to make the Canes out of camp or he's not in the mix for an extra forward role, or whether or not he's in the mix for an extra forward role. I think there's a good chance he spends some time in Chicago this season, so let's talk about him. Nason's game is it has a great amount of skill to it. He has good but not great puck skills and good playmaking vision. His shot is above average. What drives his game is his ability to win puck battles down low or at the net front and get those shots away from dangerous areas. He's got a high work ethic, and while not a good skater per se, he skates hard on his shifts. Defensively, he's not anything special and will occasionally get sucked down into the play when he should be cutting off passes to the point. For however long he's in Chicago with the Wolves, he should be a dangerous top 6 forward.
Big acquisition, too, for the Wolves, as they seem to do every offseason. Right? Yeah. Max Latunov is in his 4th NHL organization, but has only played for 2 of them, which I'm sure is weird to think that he probably has like a Coyotes tracksuit somewhere. And it's like, yep, never got to even wear this. I was shocked to see Latunov's production last year, as 3 assists in 32 games last season is not a very good measurement of his playmaking skill. I think he's a better shooter than a playmaker, but he still has good puck skills and good playmaking vision. Latunov also has a solid work ethic and can be a useful forechecker. His big drawback is his skating, which isn't terrible, but it's not good. Defensively, I like Latunov. I don't think he's a 200-foot player or anything, but he's capable on his own end and does more than just the minimum to not get benched by his coach. Like a little bit more than that, but I wouldn't call him, the next Mark Stone or anything crazy.
Next up, let's talk about Dominic Bach. Bach struggled last season to get going and gave inconsistent efforts. And, it's a criticism that I'm sure is unfamiliar to him as he's frustrated coaches in the past. But don't get it twisted, though. Bach has talent. He is a high-end shooter who can do Austin Matthews like curl and drag wristers. He has good puck skills. His playmaking and skating are above average. He's a good but not great skater. He had several games last season where I asked myself, how is he not dominating this league, though? And then he'd have games where I had to check the lineup to make sure that he was actually in the game. Like he was kind of invisible. A lot of those witness protection style games are when he's not getting the puck early and he just kind of floats all game. Now, I put that on both the player and the coach, though. Bach needs to find that consistent effort throughout the game and from game to game as well. Coaches also need to be finding ways to get him the puck early and often. Bach has too much talent to be MIA this often, as he should be an easy top 6 producer in the AHL this season. We'll see what happens as he grows. I think maybe with the dual affiliation with Nashville last year, he might have got a little diluted with that as well.
Yeah, there's that. And I mean, like I said, it's hard to feel like you're in the game if you're not getting the puck on your stick. And that's something that, like, I think of Jonathan Drouin when I think of guys who, like, if you can get them touches on the puck early, they get a feel for the game, they can go off. But they're prone to kind of float around when that's not happening for them, and they're not able to make plays because they just don't feel connected to the game. Gotcha. So I kind of sympathize with Bach for a little bit, but that is something where that effort needs to be there more. I said last season that Reese had the hands to make AHL defenders look bad, and in his second game, Jamison Reese did just that, scoring a highlight reel first AHL goal on a defender we won't embarrass on the show. It's out there on YouTube. You know who you are. Reese's game is skilled and physical. As I alluded to, he has very good puck skills. He's also a high-end playmaker and is a good shooter. He plays with pace and can create zone entries with his feet, as his skating is solid as well. Basically, he can be an offensive weapon. Reese is also physical and throws his body around, but his discipline is not great. 47 penalty minutes in 29 games is straight up too many. And he has a history of bad penalties and doing stupid things to get suspended earlier in his career. So this isn't just like, first year in the AHL, he went a little wild. Like, he's been doing this for a long time. He should be a valuable forward for the Wolves this season, but he definitely needs to grow in certain areas of his game, one of which is discipline and kind of controlling his temper and not taking bad penalties.
All right, from Jamison Reese, we go to Ryan Suzuki. Suzuki looked okay last season for a regular player. He looked better when you consider his age. Offensively, his game is powered by great skating, a high hockey IQ, high-end playmaking vision, and puck skills. Suzuki can fly through the neutral zone with the puck and create scoring chances. He's a huge boost to the power play, where the additional time and space allows him to find passing lanes that others don't. His shooting isn't bad, but he's very much pass first, sometimes to a fault. I think it'd be good for his overall offensive effectiveness to shoot more, to force defenders to respect the threat more, if anything else. Defensively, he's solid, but he's not physical and doesn't look to make contact. Like Thomas Harley, Suzuki shares a last name with a popular motorcycle, and we're going to nickname him in the same fashion as we did with Harley. So we're going to go with Katana. The sword version is a precision weapon that strikes with speed. The motorcycle version is produced with an eye for fine detail that blends speed and style. Both are fitting descriptions of Suzuki's game, so the nickname lands. If those two end up as teammates, I mean, you're going to have a motorcycle pairing, some sort of motorcycle joke.
That would be a very fun, like, power play. Thomas Nightrod Harley to Katana Suzuki. I like this a lot. We need to orchestrate this trade.
Let's make this happen.
Yep. Last but not least on the forward line, we have to talk about Jack Drory. Drory's biggest asset is his hockey IQ. He's detail-oriented and finds ways to problem-solve under pressure. He's a Han Solo style player in that he will shoot first and make passes and ask questions second. His puck skills and playmaking revision are fine, but they don't stand out. His skating isn't good, as he skates very upright instead of getting his knees over his toe caps. Defensively, he's solid, and his attention to detail once again shines, though, as he's always seemingly always in good position to take away passing options and smother plays. I think he needs some seasoning in the AHL and should probably spend the whole year with the Wolves. And I think he struggles initially, but should be a quality middle six forward for the Wolves in the last stages of this season.
All right, we got the forwards covered. Let's head on over to the defensemen and let's talk Max Lajoie. Lajoie took a big leap forward last season. He's always been a prospect with good puck skills and playmaking vision, but seemed to outthink himself in previous seasons. His skating is solid as well, and it helps him as he starts the breakout, and he could threaten to beat the forecheck with either his feet or pass. Defensively, his game showed improvement over previous seasons where he struggled heavily. I don't think he'll ever be a standout defensive defenseman, but the progress from last season makes me think he'll be passable in his own end this season.
Eric Jelena has not been in the AHL since 2018, spending the last 3 seasons in Sweden's SHL. Jelena's biggest offensive asset is his one-timer. He can absolutely hammer the puck. He's not a great playmaker and rarely leaves the blue line in the offensive zone. He skates okay for a guy his size, but is still prone to getting burned by faster, smaller forwards. Defensively, he's a battler and can grind opponents down, but he doesn't defend his blue line that well because of skating. He's still a capable middle pairing defenseman whose booming one-timer should get him time on the second unit power play because he can let it fly.
All right, next up, Kevin Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald's found more offense in his game last season, but I don't think that's as likely to stick. He's still a more defensive-minded defenseman who can win battles at the net, or at the net front, rather, in his own zone. Offensively, he has a heavy shot, but isn't going to join the rush or activate off the blue line that often. Still, he has good puck skills and is a decent skater, but I think he pairs best with a more offensive-minded defensive partner.
Joey Keane's standout ability is his skating. It's what drives the rest of his game. Offensively, he uses it to beat forecheckers and start breakouts. His playmaking vision and puck skills are also really impressive. In the offensive zone, he's capable of making higher-end passes and coming off the blue line into dangerous areas. He's not a great shooter, but he's able to finish on pucks from mid-range. Defensively, he's again making the best of his skating and shutting down forwards in the neutral zone, where he will skate forwards in an arc called surf skating almost, where he will basically pin them into a wall, forcing them into either dump the puck in or give it up.
Lastly, we've got Jesper Selgrin. Selgrin is a prospect who I think Coach Wikowski is going to like a lot. His game isn't particularly sexy, and his offensive toolkit is okay. He has all-around average puck skills and playmaking vision. He is a good shooter. He is a strong skater, but he doesn't have that high top speed. What makes him likely to endear himself to the coach is more of his reliability. Selgrin is very good in transition and rarely makes a bad turnover or mistake. And, while he's not going glass and out often, he problem solves very well on breakouts and beats the forecheck with very good first passes. He's also a very good defender and shuts plays down quickly in transition and in his own end. A guy who doesn't make a lot of mistakes and can be trusted on the PK in his own zone. Coaches love those guys, even if they don't have a lot of offensive upside.
So those are our defensemen. Let's talk goaltenders here. We are going to talk about Luke's cousin Beckwarm here. He looked very solid last season. He's not the most athletic goaltender, but he has some quickness to him and can get post to post and make tough stops. His best asset, though, is his puck tracking and making sure that he's always on his angle. I don't know if he'll ever be an everyday NHL goalie, but I think he's got the skill set to be a top AHL goalie if the voodoo can go his way.
And new addition, as I mentioned earlier, looking to become the king of the goaltending jungle in the Central Division, Alex Lyon. He is in an NHL jersey, an AHL jersey rather, that isn't orange. It's going to be a weird sight to see. It's going to be bizarre. But he's been a reliable starter in the AHL for a few years now. He's done that on the back of solid technique and above average puck tracking. His athleticism isn't great as he struggles to make saves when the defense breaks down in front of him, but he should be what he's always been, a goalie that can start 35-ish games and give you good but not great results. And hey, he is the winning goaltender of the longest game in AHL history. So that's a feather.
I think my plan when he first gets starts is actually to mess with the tint on my TV so that it still looks like he's in an orange jersey. I think that's something we can do.
Yeah, because it's going to be weird seeing him maroon and gold.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so let's talk outcomes here. Let's go best case scenario. Best case, the Wolves get big steps forward in production from their youths like Reese and Suzuki, as well as solid depth contributions from others. The defense remains solid, and Beckwarm silences any notions that last season was a fluke. They finish with 86 points for a 56.58% points percentage and a second-place divisional finish.
Well, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the worst case scenario, and you see stagnation from a lot of prospects in this scenario who are being relied on. Injuries to Freddie Anderson means Beckwarm misses starts, and the Death Division lives up to its name, and and doesn't let down that moniker. Worst case scenario, the Wolves finish with 76 points and a 50% even points percentage. That's a sixth place finish in the division. Easy for me to say.
So let's talk about the most likely case here. The model has the Wolves projected for 79.59 points for a 52.36 points percentage. That's a 5th place finish in the division. I understand how tight the Central is going to be this year with Milwaukee, Texas, Grand Rapids, and Iowa also looking to field very competitive teams. But I think this model is too low on a lot of the guys in their roster. I'm taking the over and saying 84 points for a 55.26 points percentage and a stronger but still 5th place finish in the division. That is still a playoff spot, though, and I think as their kids get seasoned more throughout the year, they're going to pick up steam at the end, and they're going to be a more dangerous playoff team than a 5th place seed would be normally considered.
Momentum is a hell of a thing, especially once you start going into the playoffs, for sure.
We're going to take a break here, and just after the break, we'll get to the Rockford IceHogs season preview. If you don't want to be a part of that depression and you're just here for the Chicago Wolves, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We're also on social media and pretty fun on social media, I would say. So co-follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Calder Farmstead and Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We are also running a promotion here where you can get we are giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. It'll be the team of your choosing because if you let us choose, that would be weird. So go to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. If you can't spell the Calder Farmstead, I can't help you. So if you go there, you'll see right away at the top the instructions for how to enter that contest. All the stuff you need to click on will be linked right below it. It should be simple. It should take you 10 minutes tops. All right, we will take a break so we can pay some bills here, and we will be back to talk about the Rockford IceHogs. Stay tuned.
Last but not least, this episode, well, maybe least, we'll sort that out. But
It's coming in hot right away.
Sorry, y'all. Rockford IceHogs here in the Central Division. Let's talk Rockford. Head coach Derek King coming into his 3rd full season. He was a head coach in part of the 18-19 campaign. 2021 record was 12-19-1-0, 0.391 points percentage. Dead last, 6th place out of 6 teams in the Central Division last season. Affiliation for 2021, I mean, there's still Chicago Blackhawks, still Indy Fuel down in the ECHL, and I mean, hell, they got purchased by the Blackhawks this offseason, at least approved. So that they're all tied in now. Game scheduled 72. Shawnee, it's a small list, but talk additions for Rockford this year.
They got Penn Stater Liam Falks coming over, as well as Cale Howarth, Ryan Stanton, and Cliff Watson.
Wait, that's it? Yeah. No, I know. I was just
not a whole lot changing here.
Right.
They didn't add a bunch of sexy free agents. That's the other Chicago.
That's the other Chicago's job. Subtractions, however, John Quenneville, he's out. Tim Soderlund, Cody Franzen, Anton Lindholm heads back to where he started his career in Florida, I believe. Matt Tompkins is gone, goaltender. Cole Moberg, you have to say that slowly, and Mitchell Fossier. So more subtractions than additions, but I'm sure, they signed a few guys to ELCs. Again, we'll get into that.
Yep.
So
let's start forwards here, and let's start with Chris Wilkie. Wilkie had a pretty strong rookie season for the IceHogs last year. Without the puck, he has a nose for the net and heads right into the slot area. Without the puck, which is how he scored most of his goals, just having that nose for a net, getting a stick on rebounds, tips, or finding space in tight for a tap-in. With the puck, his puck skills are very raw and unpolished. He looks still kind of uncomfortable handling in tight. This leads him to getting pushed to the perimeter rather easily at times, even though he's a bigger guy who's capable of being physical. He has good playmaking vision and can find teammates in the offensive zone. His shooting talent is about average. He has good velocity due to physical strength, but his mechanics are inconsistent. I've seen shots that look mechanically very solid, and then I've seen others where it's like, oh, buddy, that one was pretty. I don't know how that even made it to the net. He has skating speed, but his stride breaks down easily, especially when it's, loose puck, got to go right now. It seems like his stride starts to break down. It becomes a lot choppier. Defensively, he's above average and an okay-ish penalty killer. I'm not sure if he ends up in Rockford's top 6, but he could find success if his game can take steps forward in some of the areas we talked about. And if he has good chemistry with line mates, they can, bridge their skills together to kind of form, a good offensive ability. Someone who is maybe a little faster, has a little bit better stick handling ability, can find him in close.
All right, next up, when we talk about players needing the junior coached out of them, a lot of them play like Henrik Borgstrom has in the past. So Borgstrom has high-end puck skills, pretty good skating. He can absolutely embarrass defenders one-on-one. However, he tries to go one-on-one and deke his way through every defender. And it looks like he sees the ice as an obstacle course, and he has to deke through, players as opposed to one populated by teammates and open space. That's something you see a lot in junior players, and it's still in Borgstrom's game. It still was in his game last season in Liga. He's a good skater too, but will stop taking strides and glide a lot earlier than necessary, and will arrive late to the play a little too often. He defensively, Borgstrom is not great and rarely puts in the effort to make stops. Hopefully he's managed to have some of that leave his game as he comes back to the AHL, but he could, if he gets it all together, be a very good player.
Yeah, he's a very talented player, but it's another one, like we talked about earlier, with some of Chicago's younger players. Like, he has frustrated many a coach because you'll see him just dance through two guys and score, and then you'll see him, dance through two guys, and instead of making a pass to an open teammate, be like, but what if I tried to dance through one more guy, and then he gets stopped, and it's like, ugh.
You got to coach the junior.
Yeah, you got to coach the junior. All right, another Penn State product here, which we will always mention on this podcast for reasons I won't explain. Very good season for Evan Barrett last year in 2021. Barrett has a lot to like about his game. Offensively, he's a very good playmaker who can find seams to put pucks on his teammates' sticks in the slot. He's a solid shooter who took steps forward last season to be a threat to score in space. Barrett's biggest problem is that his skating is very bad, and he struggles with the pace of the AHL because of it. Even though he can problem solve well, hockey IQ, puck skills, can shoot, his skating is very, very not good. It holds him back. Defensively, Barrett is disciplined, and he's a solid defensive presence who has the awareness to take away scoring threats before they happen. If he could get his skating to just even in the ballpark of league average, he could be a bona fide top-line player across the AHL for the Ice Hogs. But with his skating as it is, he's probably more in the middle six because, I don't like dissing on my alumni brothers here, but it's yeah.
Got to be a realist for sure. Next up, kind of a surprise here, Brett Connolly. He isn't a player that I would have thought would be in the AHL after a 46-point season with the Capitals not that long ago. 2 seasons ago, he scored 19 goals with the Panthers in 63 games. So what happened to Brett Connolly between now and then? It's hard to say. I mean, he's never been a great skater or defensively inclined, but he could find soft ice in the slot and rip pucks with that quick release and good accuracy. Last season, though, was just it was a disaster for him. With a heavier contract, he needed to either find offense quickly or leave town. I thought for sure he'd make Chicago, but here we are. I imagine getting sent to the AHL is also probably a tough pill to swallow as well. I think there's a case to be made that Connolly could provide enough offense at the AHL level to still be a top-line AHLer, as he still has a solid release and shooting accuracy. But I think a lot of it is going to depend on how much is left in the tank for him at this point in his career.
Yeah, because, I mean, he's, I want to say 30, 29, somewhere in that neighborhood. Like, he's on the tail end of his, top productive years as a professional athlete. And, he's been a successful professional. Like, he scored 20 goals for quite a few seasons. Like, this is a spot that has got to be new to him. He's been in the AHL in a decade. So that demotion is going to hurt. I mean, he's still going to get paid. That's a nice little, $3.5 million chunk of change. But I think motivation could be something that keeps him not looking the best. Dylan McLaughlin, though, was the Ice Hogs' leading scorer last season and definitely saw his game take steps forward as a more complete player. Offensively, he has a decent skill set. He has average puck skills, as he can make accurate passes often, but he struggles with cleanly controlling loose pucks and isn't dangerous one-on-one. He has good playmaking vision, though, and finds passing lanes for teammates that others don't. He's not a great shooter by any means, but I do think he needs to shoot more often. I don't think he's a bad shooter, but he has very much a pass-first mentality. He's not a good skater, but he does have good edge work, but his top speed isn't fast enough to put defenders on their heels. Defensively, he's okay, although he lacks some details in getting his stick in passing lanes. However, he's a lot harder on puck carriers than he was in previous seasons, so that's a good step forward for him. I don't expect him to lead the team in scoring this year, but contributing 40 points or a 40-point pace, rather, this season is a fair expectation of him, especially if he starts to shoot more often. I think he can put a couple more goals in.
Next up, we have Mackenzie Ant Whistle, or as I like to call him, Boris the Spider, after John Ant Whistle, the bass player for The Who. Ant Whistle had an okay season for Rockford last year. I think he's going to be a useful part of the lineup for the Ice Hogs this year, but not in a way that ends up on the score sheet that often. Ant Whistle doesn't have a very good offensive skill set. He's not much of a playmaker or a shooter, and his skating is below average. His value is in his relentless forechecking ability and how good of a defensive forward he is. He's an effective penalty killer and a physical grinding force in his own end. Boris, he might occasionally chip in some offense, but his impact will be as a depth scorer who can help keep the puck out of the Ice Hogs net.
And one of my favorite names, because it sounds like part of the Star Wars universe, Andre Altabarmakian. No, we have to go search for the Jedi on the Altabarmakian system. That fits perfectly.
Exactly.
But his game is based on his skating. He's got very good straight line speed, and he flies around the ice early and often. He's capable of creating offense off the rush, but outside of his skating, his offensive skill set isn't that impressive, as he's somewhere near league average in his playmaking vision and puck skills. He's also not much of a shooter. Defensively, he backchecks hard and is a capable penalty killer, but isn't a standout defensive player. I think he'll be a good line mate to pair with guys who aren't the fleetest of foot to help get through the neutral zone and then let them do the rest.
We go from the Altabarmakian system over to the Reichel quadrant, Lucas Reichel. I think Reichel has a chance to be somebody this season. His offensive skill set is far from barren. With the puck on his stick, he can make beautiful music with his playmaking and his puck skills, and he can put pucks into space where only his teammates can get them, and that's the crucial thing. While not a sniper, he has decent shooting talent. His skating is hard to evaluate because I've seen him blow past defenders from a standstill, but I've also seen moments where he should be turning on the jets and just doesn't. Defensively, he's active, but isn't very physical and isn't the type to sell out for a shot block. I think he's going to be a useful middle six forward to start the season, but if he adjusts to the pace and style of the North American game, I think he can flirt with the top-end production. Some top-end production for the Ice Hogs this year.
I think that's very fair. Like he's got high-end tools to his game. It's just a matter of how he adjusts and things like that. Michael Tepley is our last forward we're going to talk about here. Normally a guy who posts 5 points in 18 games would not be making our preview cutoff for, impact players. However, I think Michael Tepley has more to offer than his stat totals from last season. He's a big forward who has good playmaking vision and puck skills. He can create scoring chances with the puck on his stick. He's also a pretty good shooter. However, his skating speed is a major issue, and kind of like we talked about with Evan Barrett, it holds him back. Defensively, he's not going to give the Ice Hogs much either. If he can use his size to overpower defenders more often and crash the net, I think he can have more success this season and put up more than 5 points. So I think there is potential there, and I didn't want to leave him off because I thought that potential was worth noting. Like, he could still be, a fourth liner that doesn't have to make it, but I think there's a chance there for him to at least be a regular contributor.
So what you're saying is you're saying that Tepley isn't going to be tepid. Anyway, yeah, the jokes are more dry when in person. You'll have to trust him. All right, defense. Let's talk blue liners. Let's talk Nicholas Beaudin. So the amount of yo-yoing that Beaudin got last season was truly ridiculous. He started the season in Chicago and sent down and then called back up 3 times. The last 2 were in the span of 6 weeks. And despite all that, he still managed to develop and have a decent season. His calling card is his playmaking vision. When given the time, he can make some beautiful passes, which, he comes to the downside of that sentence is when given time. That's the key part of that sentence structure right there. He struggles to process the game and create time for himself. Some of which is due to his skating, which I thought made progress last season and is now just below average instead of horrible like it had been in past years. Defensively, he's not great at defending his blue line due to his skating. In zone, he's good though and can break up plays with his stick. He's still going to be a useful top 4D in Rockford this season, but he's going to need to take steps in his game if he wants to be a bigger impact than that. And I think, the NHL doing away with the taxi squad and not have to worrying about those, purgatory guys, as it were, I think that'll help Nick Beaudin.
Next, we want to talk about Alec Regula. Not exactly the production you were hoping from him last season, but I don't think that's indicative of who he is as a defenseman. Even though I don't think he's ever going to rack up points, his playmaking vision and puck skills are average at best. He's a very good shooter, though, and will work to shoot from high danger areas instead of just blasting pucks from far distance. In transition, he makes good first passes and can handle pressure well from forecheckers, which is surprising given that his skating is below average. Defensively, he's solid and can make stops, but struggles to defend his blue line in transition because of his skating. I think he needs to find good chemistry and balance with his D partner, but could still be a solid middle pair defenseman for the Ice Hogs this season.
Next up, we have Isaac Phillips. So last season, Phillips was asked to just play a simple game as a bottom pairing defenseman. For the most part, he kept up his end of the bargain. I get the feeling he's going to maybe have a bigger ask of him this season. His game is not likely ever going to include much offense, as he's below average across the board on his offensive skill set. He has good defensive skating, though, and he's able to hold a tight gap and defend his blue line well. He was good enough in his own zone last season. So ideally, I'd like to see some more progress in his game where he's more comfortable coming off the blue line as he did in juniors. But, as well as being able to get transition going more often in his own end, I'd like to see that as well this season. His coaching is probably not the only ones that want to see him make that step up.
There's a good chance Ian Mitchell starts this season in Chicago while Caleb Jones gets healthy, but I think he's Rockford bound at some point for this season. Mitchell's transition to the pro game last season went pretty decently. He got 39 games in for Chicago, and they went pretty well, I thought. His offensive skill set isn't very impressive, and he's unlikely to be someone who ends up on the score sheet often. This is mostly due to his very conservative mindset with the puck on his stick, as he'll get rid of pucks under pressure instead of trying to work for a better shot or make a more dangerous pass. Defensively, Mitchell shines. He's an attacking defender who can dial up the pressure to 11 on puck carriers in transition as well as in zone. I think it's unlikely that he becomes more risk tolerant this season and continues to be a second pair, strictly defense only kind of player.
Why be an attacking defender that just goes to 10 when you can go to 11? This one goes to 11. Next up, lastly, let's talk about Jakob Galvez. So Galvez comes over after 2 years in Finland's top league, Liga. His game is based on high-end skating. It allows him to play with a sense of urgency that is just impressive. I've seen him hustle to chase down dump-ins and catch opposing teams in a line change with a stretch pass because of the sheer hustle that it takes to make that happen. Otherwise, his offensive game is good, but not great. His puck skills and playmaking vision are somewhere between average and above average. Defensively, that skating is his biggest tool, as he uses it to close in on forwards and strip them of possession, just like that. I think he starts slow in his first pro season in North America, but he's got a shot to be a sleeper on this Rockford blue line this season.
Yeah. Last up, the crowded goaltending room in Rockford. We went with 3 goalies that we think are very clearly going to make an impact, but there's a lot of bodies in there, and these 3 I think are clearly the best. So let's get started with Malcolm Subban. As soon as Fleury decided to play for Chicago this season, not just get traded there, but decide he wasn't just going to call it a career, the writing was on the wall for Malcolm Subban. He was going to be the odd man out. He has high-end athleticism and can make tough saves going post-to-post because of it. He can read the play well and rarely loses the puck in traffic. His biggest weakness as a goalie has been his aggressiveness and overshooting the angles when he explodes from one area to the other. He'll push himself too far and then be off his angle and be open to giving some net up he otherwise shouldn't. While he hasn't been in the NHL for a while, I expect him to be a quality starter for the Ice Hogs while he's there, as he's undoubtedly the first call-up if Flower or Lankinen get hurt.
Next up, we've got somebody that's played for the Blackhawks, for the Ice Hogs, and for the Indy Fuel. In this organization, he's kind of a big dealia. It's Colin Delia. That was bad. That was so bad. Anyway, after a season of just 10 games total in 2021, Delia is back in Rockford. With 90 AHL games in Rockford under his belt, there isn't any new light to shed on Delia's game here. He's pretty average at tracking the puck. His athleticism is good, but not great. I don't expect much from him here, as he's going to very likely split starts with Malcolm Subban.
Well, if you caught any of our, talk about Rockford last season, you know that we were beating the drum to free Cale Morris.
We were.
In an ideal world, Cale Morris would have won the starting job easily last year and be once again holding down the fort for the Ice Hogs going into 21-22. That's not the case, though, as Morris only played 9 games for Rockford last season, despite very clearly being the best goaltender on their roster. We presume this is injury related, but the AHL doesn't release anything about injuries ever because injuries are the one ring and the AHL is gala. Still, Cale's game looks very solid in limited sample size last season. He has solid athleticism. He tracks the puck well. His safe selection and technical structure were also very good. I think he gets booted down to Indy to start the season, but hopefully he'll be able to battle through and get a good workload in Rockford this season because, again, free Cale Morris.
Hashtag free Cale Morris. All right. Lastly, with Rockford, let's talk outcomes. Here we go. Best case scenario. If Rockford can get steps forward from last season's from guys like Tepley and Wilkie, as well as get Brett Connolly to show that he's an NHL caliber player in the AHL, this team could be competitive, especially as I like their goalie room. Best case scenario, they finish with 77 points for 53.47 points percentage and a 5th place divisional finish.
That's playoffs.
That's playoffs.
Worst case is, basically the opposite of best case. Connolly looks disinterested in playing. Injuries deplete the goalie room, and Cale Morris showed that 9 games is not a strong enough sample to make judgments on. Without a good veteran core, the young guys don't take the steps forward like we hoped, and it's another down year in Rockford. Worst case scenario, they finish with 64 points for a 44.44 points percentage, which, spoiler, that's last in the division. Yet somehow still better than last year.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's go the middle of the spectrum, or at least close to the middle as we can, with the most likely case scenario here. The model, and remember, it's only a model, it projects the Ice Hogs for a 68.63 points, and a 47.66 points percentage. And while I think that they are the low man on the Death Division totem pole, I have a lot more faith in this roster than the model does. I'll happily take the over here and say 73 points for a nice 50.69 points percentage. That's still last in the division, but it's much more competitive last place.
I mean, like,
a little more bullish.
It's hard to find ways to move teams up in this division. It really is. Like, so many things have to go not just right for you, but wrong for others. And like a lot of these other teams, man, they're deep. So it's like, I think I'm a lot higher like you on Rockford this year, but like, it's hard to be like, yeah, but they can absolutely, like, best case scenario, they're leaping 3 teams. Oh, that's a big ask.
And a few seasons ago when I was covering the ECHL, their Central Division, I called it. I mean, it was just as competitive, I think, as this year. Maybe the AHL is a little more competitive, but I called it a meat grinder. I called it the meat grinder division. This one is the Death Division. This one's the Gauntlet. I would say that that's a very apt comparison for this one as well. The Central Division is a meat grinder. Yeah. It's going to be brutal. There will be blood.
It's hockey season. That's a guarantee. But like, I think one of the other things too that's kind of underrated about the Central is like there aren't soft teams. Like there isn't that one team where it's just like, oh yeah, like last year with Hirosi, it's like, oh, we're playing Binghamton. I guess this will be 5-2 or whatever. Like that doesn't exist in the Central, and because the divisions are so self-contained, like 85% of the games that are played in AHL in the division,
right?
And the Central at least gets to bounce a little bit around. Like they kind of steal a game or two in the Pacific, steal some from the North. But like for the most part, it's going to be the same, 7 teams fighting out, and they're all good. And their NHL clubs are all like semi-competitive, so it kind of helps cut the floor out of it, where they're just tanking and all right, let's pull all the prospects up. So it's going to be rough in the Central this year. I'm excited to see how it turns out. Hopefully we are giving Rockford the Dunce Award, but we'll see.
We shall see. Hold on to your butts. All right. Well, hey, That's it for the show. Thanks for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs. Again, easy for me to say, at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. You click it, just brrr. That's the sound of it populating, by the way. And enjoy.
It's usually not the sound I associate with populating, but okay.
Oh, okay.
If you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure to subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the show. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow us on social media, where we post funny memes and news bits and updates, and generally have a good time. That you can follow us at Calder Farmstead on Twitter and at the Calder Farmstead on Facebook and Instagram. We're also doing a contest and giving away not one, not two, but 3 free AHL TV team packages. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling down below here on YouTube, or is it here maybe? It's not up here.
No,
here.
it's down.
Down here. So that is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. You found this podcast somehow. The spelling of the Calder Farmstead will be on it if you're not sure. But you can go there. That will take you to our podcast links, our social media channels, as well as all the information you need for the AHL TV team package giveaway. Also, big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION, so he can make music for you too. Cece, where can people find you?
Well, my name is CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CC Hawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. The majority of my tweets are about hockey, but hey, I follow pro wrestling, I follow music, I follow other things as well. So hopefully if it keeps me interested, it's not going to be bullshit for you. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Sean, enough about me. Where can people find you?
Right next to you.
Oh, hey.
You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. You can find my stats work and eventually find the model that we keep referencing of how this projects stuff. That will get put up somewhere in the first week to 10 days of the AHL season, but you can find all of that from last season and more at bit.ly/datadumpandchase, all lowercase, all one word. I'm going to close this out because it's fine out. So for CC Hockley, I'm Sean O'Brien. Thank you for tuning into the show. Please dump and chase responsibly.
I got a plane to catch. See you later.